Nintendo, and Silicon Valley to produce the Nintendo 64. Oh, nice! I did not think I would land that. But they were going to the next step of that. It's like I said. Oh, nice. The guy for Sega America was like, well, we got to do something to kind of like step it up.
Final round.
So he met with, like I said, people from Sony. That didn't work out. He tried to go the Silicon Valley route. Again, Sega Japan's like, no, it's just going to be a waste of Silicon technology. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, these graphics are amazing. Like, imagine what we could do. Oh, that's sweet.
So you could do that.
Yeah, you can like interact with a lot of the background and stuff. I've never seen that one though. But so yeah, then they had to rush, of course, the Sega Saturn out. And that was a 32-bit processor chip. And they couldn't, at that point, change it. So, yeah, right.
Oh.
Nice.
You know, everybody, or I think, the way I look at it. But I guess Sega really started going downhill with the Dreamcast. I feel like that was kind of like their death rattle, because after that, they just kind of disappeared.
Well, I think, actually, so I thought the same thing, perhaps. There was actually a decent system. I want to go back. I'm going to do a little bit more research and find out exactly who developed the Dreamcast. But, again, when watching that documentary, they were kind of forced to put two 32-bit processors in the system to try to keep up. But I think they said it made like game programming really difficult and clunky.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then it was also like $100 more than the PlayStation, which they did footage of like an expo for gaming. I think the 64 said they were going to like hold off for a year or something like that. And then they were talking with the guy again, Tom from Sega. And he was like, yeah, it's $399. And they're like, wow, is the price expected to come down? He's like, I really wish I could say it would, but it doesn't look like it's going to. And so then the guy from Sony PlayStation comes out and takes the microphone and just goes, $299, and walks away.
One half man to another.
So when the final numbers came out, the Sega Saturn was actually, I feel like, the nail in the coffin for Sega. It sold like less than, I think they said 10 million units. Sweet. The 64 sold like a little over 30 million. And then Sony PlayStation became like the best-selling video game system ever, clearing over 100 million units. So it beat Sega like 10-1. Tom started to feel like he was being fought from within the company, and it made sense when you were looking at like this guy Tom was like basically put in charge to make all the decisions of basically all the decisions for Sega in America. And like I was saying earlier, when they first met and Tom met with the president of Sega, he had like 4 things he wanted to do, and one was lower the price right away. He wanted to make it more accessible to like properties in America, which they hadn't really done so far because, you know, Japanese didn't really understand like Home Alone and things like that, Madden. So he wanted to get more properties in there. He wanted to include the main character with the hardware, like Mario.
Package it in like Nintendo.
Exactly. And something else. I can't remember everything else he wanted to do, but this just, I mean, everything he was saying, it just, it's like, they had another guy from Japan who was just, like a CEO of Sega of Japan, who was the one who recruited Tom, and he was there kind of like translating and like the middleman kind of, and he was like, everything Tom was saying, he was like, he would just change like a different color. Just like, he said he stood up, he goes, I don't remember if he physically kicked the chair, because I kind of remember like the chair kicked over, and he storms out of the office, and Tom was like, you know, that's it, like, shortest career in any company ever. And then he stops at the door, the Japanese president. It's like, you know, again, man of honor, Japanese and all. And was like, you know, I hired you for a reason, so do what you have to do. And allowed him to make all these decisions. And it wound up working. Like, it made Sega what it was. Advertising. He wanted to go hardcore with advertising. So you have like all the Sega screams and all this stuff, you know. This guy Tom was like revolutionary. Like they should do like a whole documentary on this guy. He like worked at Mattel for years. Like just he was awesome. So a lot of the times though he would go to, you know, the president and go, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, and they're like, no, no. But then of course they would cave. Okay, everything. Okay. It blew up. Like Sega didn't really take off in Japan like it did in America. I feel like that's kind of the opposite with Nintendo. I feel like Nintendo really took off in Japan, you know.
Absolutely.
Pokemon and all that kind of stuff. Sega, not so much. Sega was like an American college, high school phenomenon.
I always felt like Sega was the sports console.
Rated.
It was. It's like there's another documentary I watched, and like when they mentioned Madden, NBA Jam. There's a lot of different.
Just all the sports games. That's it.
Hockey.
That's what everybody that ever had Genesis always had sports games.
All the hockey stuff. Oh yeah, totally.
Well, not good, but you know, good.
For the time, yeah. EA, Electronic Arts, yeah, they put out a lot of stuff for Sega Genesis. Absolutely. They had the little yellow tab on the side of the carts there. So,
Tank Garage Bunker.
Tom was saying he felt like he was being looked at like we got to do something about this guy in a sense, because he's doing better in America than we are in Japan, you know, and we can't have some guy in America doing better than our Japanese company here in Japan. And oh shoot, I must pull my headset out. There was a lot of like, you know, Nakayama-san would come in and like, you know, want numbers for this quarter and that quarter, whatever, and well, why aren't you selling like America is? You know, I don't know. Like, we can't, you know, we're trying to figure it out. Why can't you do what he's doing? And so, at one point, he felt like them saying no to him doing this new system was their way of getting control back in their hands. And so basically and like I said, this is where I want to do a little bit more research, because he stepped down right after Sega Saturn failed. Like, he just bowed right out. They did Sega Dreamcast, which actually didn't do terribly bad. And then they pulled out of the console business altogether. But they announced it, like they made it like a conscious decision to say, we're not making consoles, we'll continue to make software, but we're not making any more hardware. And I think what they wanted to do was kind of go out on a good note, in a sense. So I kind of want to do some research to see exactly who developed and who was behind the Sega Dreamcast and who was behind more of the Sega Saturn. But it was really like cutthroat. It kind of seemed like mafia kind of stuff. It's like the video game industry. You know, you're supposed to be kind of like working together.
It's funny you say that. That's what they're doing now. They're kind of like internally they're over the console wars themselves. They know the best way to do it is to do it
Work
together.
together, exactly. Right. Oh, dude, this documentary, dude, they were doing things like deflating Sonic balloons at conventions and sinking them in the bottom of the hotel pools. Walmart had such a fear of Nintendo. Nintendo was cutthroat. Like, the guy who ran Nintendo, this is how they looked at it. It's crack.
Reggie Fils-Aimé.
It's guys are so like I want to go up and like learn some of these guys' names. There was like so many just like these guys who just like the board of Nintendo, and they were just like so smug. They just show up. They're like, it's easy, it's great, it's the best business. They come in, they try, they buy, they go home happy. We all make money. It's great. We love it. And I mean, I was looking at it, it's like, yeah, it's like crack. Like these kids come in, you know. The very first Nintendo that was sold was at FAO Schwartz, and well, no, ever, but I'm guessing like these guys loaded the systems themselves into the truck and took it to FAO Schwartz. I would imagine it's the very first one ever sold. And they watched it go out the door, and whoever bought it bought every single video game that was available at the time, which probably wasn't many, but at the same time, you know, this was somebody who was like a die-hard like toy fanatic clearly, and wanted to see what this new thing from Nintendo was.
Sonya.
And once it took off, like, Nintendo was the only thing out there, really, for a long time. And then when Sega, like, tried to come in, they would, like, threaten major retailers. Like, okay, well, if you give even 4 foot to Sega, we're going to pull, you know, 10 foot of product out of our stores or whatever, pull out of our store altogether. And a lot of places wouldn't even put anything in the store. And Walmart was dead fast, like so terrified of Nintendo, they wouldn't do it. It's like we're not going to do it. So again, mafia tactics. Tom, the guy from Sega America, opened a Sega store right across the street from Walmart's main store and like office, and then put up billboards all up and down the highway where the Walmart was located. Sega, Sega, Sega. Come play Sega for free. And so finally, Tom's like sitting in his office and he gets a call from like the president or CEO or whatever of, you know, Walmart in that area. And he's like, dude, Tom, will you stop it? It's like, no. He's like, all right, I'll give you a 4 foot section. And so finally Walmart gave Sega a 4 foot section. But that's the kind of like tactics it took to get video games sold back in the day. It's just crazy to think about, but like you said, nowadays, like, there's more you know, equal playability across the board. It's really just a matter of like, well, what do you prefer? Do you prefer PC? Do you prefer Xbox? Do you prefer PlayStation? Where you know, Nintendo still on that, like, kind of like the good wholesome side. Mortal Kombat, you know, perfect example where they decided to omit the blood. And Sega was like, no, we're going to give it to you the way it's supposed to be, which, you know, had its upside and its downside, of course. Give it to her. Yes. But then at some point, I think it was with Mortal Kombat 2, they were like, you know, we gotta give the kids what they want, and that's you know, blood and guts. So of course they did the version like it was supposed to be.
That's true. I mean, then Nintendo was the family, the family console.
Yep. Yeah, they had like even like in like Senate meetings and stuff like that, you know. That's what their driving force was. Like, yeah, we did do Mortal Kombat, but, you know, we decided to keep the blood out. Mortal Kombat, like, really put Sega in the running because they sold 5-to-1 Mortal Kombat cartridges. Because kids wanted the blood and the guts. So,
Yeah, of course.
I
I want to see those stupid little red pixels flying around.
Dude, I was thinking about that too. Like, yeah, like, I mean, you look at it now, it's like so cool, so graphic. But yeah, it was just like red splatter. And then like these goofy little like animations of spinal cords and skulls and
I mean,
we'll see
I
another
love Mortal Kombat 3 because I don't know. You play as Raiden and you electrocute a guy to death and he blows up, and there's like 14 rib cages. You know what I mean? Like a bunch of femurs bouncing around. So
it's all femurs.
It's
dude.
over the top, and they're having fun with it. They know what they're doing.
I love the ones like where they get torched and they're just like skeletons. You know, the mouth wide open, that screaming skeleton look.
It's so good.
But yeah, no, it was, and that was so satisfying. Just that, you know, back, forward, you know, whatever. But yeah, no, such a cool documentary, such a good watch, and I just had no clue like how crazy, and like these guys were switching sides.
He is Onaga, the deceiver. He said you would say that.
There was a guy who worked for Nintendo who said, "I'm gonna go work for Sega because you guys are too lame," you know. And then they're like, "Yeah, remember like Bill all of a sudden just got like real edgy, started smoking cigarettes, and driving a convertible, and the next thing you know, he was like putting his 2 weeks notice and going to work for Sega." And then there was somebody, I think it was one of the guys who was trying to get Sega and Sony together and try to take this thing to the next level with like Silicon or something. And when, you know, they kept getting met with no, he said, "All right, well, I'm going to quit and go work for Sony because they want to do something with this."
Yeah, they don't want to make the same
Fight.
garbage over and over.
Right. I mean, we're talking next generation consoles. This is what we're about. And if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And so he left, and it was always like at conventions, that would be the guy to get up and address the competition, or at the Senate hearings to address the competition. Like Bad Boy Bill, who was like smoking cigarettes. What was so shocking about it is he had like this baby face kind of like demeanor. And so, see him up there on the Senate hearings, it gave Sega more of an innocent look as opposed to Tom, who looked like a businessman, you know, who looked like somebody who was out to make money. And that was right, and that's probably like one of the things that kind of was like the saving grace, even though Nintendo clearly was like, if you want to say, the winner of the Senate hearings, if there is one, but it gave Sega that innocent look. But then at the same time, Nintendo had to sit there and nice, kind of go back and forth and argue with somebody who used to be on their side. So like anytime there's any kind of confrontation, it's kind of like, man, come on, Bill, like why are you throwing us under the bus? Like you used to, like 6 months ago, whatever, you worked for us. And so it was kind of just like an extra punch in the gut, or like I said, they would do like a convention, and you know, if somebody like jumped ship, that would be the guy to introduce the new system, you know. In fact, I think the guy who got on stage and said $2.99 was a guy who used to work for Sega Genesis. So it's just kind of like, not only is that like an awesome sales point, a killer speech, you know, everybody else is up there like talking for like 15-20 minutes or whatever, and he literally just gets up there and says $2.99, puts the mic back and walks away, and the crowd goes wild. I mean, the crowd just starts screaming. Yeah, exactly. No, they did. They went absolutely apeshit. And you know, it's just like, gosh, what a great speech. And then on top of that, you know, this kid used to work with me, or this guy went to lunch together. He's the guy delivering this shit. Damn. I was watching just like, gosh, what a crazy, and like it was fun. Like it looked like it was a lot of fun.
Special Forces, Desert Command.
The guy Tom who like stepped down from Sega. When they were showing him, he did not look like he was hurting for money at all. He definitely looked like he was still doing really well. So, it didn't look like a story of tragedy, but it was definitely one where I was just like, man, this is crazy.
I'm not a soldier, Major.
But then they had the they talked about
To cooperate, not take orders.
of course Sonic, the development of Sonic, which is really instrumental. Because I think when they were talking about introducing the #1 property or seller of Sega at the time, it was Ultra Beast. So that's what came to mind, you know? And then at some point it changed to Sonic, but Tom again was like, you know, this just in America doesn't sound good to like white middle class moms. They're gonna think it's devil worship or some weird shit. So
Sonic the Hedgehog, oh, he's so cute.
it sounds cute, exactly. And everybody was kind of like, well, what is a hedgehog? And they're like, it doesn't matter. He's blue, he's cute. Like, I think they took him to America and just like walked around the park and was just like, what do you think? I think, you know, like New York. Just like, what do you think of this guy? And they're like, oh, we love him. He's so cute, you know. So it's like, all right, this is the one. And then, of course, that became like the #1 16-bit selling video game of that year. And again, another guy who used to work for Nintendo was now working for Sega. And he said, I'm going to do the best thing I can do for Sega, or excuse me, for Nintendo. You know, even though he was working for Sega, was introduce Super Nintendo to the public for them. And he said a reporter walked up to him at the expo and said, you know, Super Nintendo has so many colors and Sega only has this many colors. What are you guys going to do about it? And he said, well, follow me, I'll show you. And he had two monitors like on top of each other. One was playing Sonic the Hedgehog, which they hadn't revealed to anybody yet. And the other was playing Super Mario World. And he just asked the reporter which one has more color. And he just ran out of the booth. And they never gave any press about Sonic the Hedgehog. They kind of saved it. It's like a surprise. Blew everybody away. In fact, I think they said the only reason they developed the game was because somebody had figured out a way to move graphics that fast. And so they were like, we need a character to like do that, match that or whatever. And so that's kind of like where that kind of came from. But they also, of course, like needed a mascot for Sega, so it all just kind of like worked together. It became like the #1 selling game, and then Sonic 2 was the first time a game was released simultaneously around the world, like on the same day. And you know, they said in the documentary, like, it sounds like nothing. Oh, nice. From one sweet loop to the next. They're like, yeah, no, today that's like nothing, but back then they're like, it was almost impossible, but it was Sonic Tuesday. And it became like this huge epic day. And, you know, it's just like I said, like, you know, up until then, like, nothing had really occurred like that. And then, there's like this one of these female who worked for Sega, and she was like, and then we got the best news ever. And they showed that clip or whatever, and it was just like the kids running in the street, Mortal Kombat. And I just like, I was watching that and I got freaking goosebumps. I was like, oh my god, no, I remember being like whatever 13 years old, and just like the hype and the anticipation, and it was insane. It was absolutely insane. And that Sonic 2 kind of started that campaign of like that, looking forward to like a release date, like a cinema. I think they talked about that, like the idea of like having like a cinematic release date, and the hype that, you know, you would get from like waiting for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You know, you got so excited to go see it, and they're like, why can't we do that with video games? But I was just like, oh man. I've got comic books now that's like, you know, huge 2-page spreads for like Mortal Kombat 2 and Mortal Kombat 3.
Her death was all too real.
Round 1. Fight.
It's like about like that screaming the Mortal Kombat, like, oh nice. How much money you could make just from screaming in the 90s. That and the Sega guy. Sega!
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 Oh, that guy. What about Toasty, man?
Oh yeah, Toasty.
Razzle Dazzle.
They had the what was that? What was it? NBA Jam has so many. It's gotta be the shoes. He's on fire. Just all that.
He's on.
Will it be this easy?
Round 2. Fight.
That was like common, like little comments you would have in gym class and stuff, you know, playing basketball. It's gotta be the shoes. It's like a part of basketball dialogue now from that game. Ah.
Oh, it's gross.
Got on me.
It's my mouth.
Danger foreseen is avoided.
Final round. Fight.
Yeah, after this round, we'll do a little dialogue on Mortal Kombat. Yeah, and I was thinking about that too. I was like, again, like watching, I guess maybe that's just long-winded where I'm going with that whole watching the documentary and getting to the whole commercial part. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, that wasn't September. So I was like, again, like, I remember, like, I've got, again, comics where they have, nice, like, the release date on the back of the comic for Mortal Kombat. I was like, I swear it was September. I just swear it was in September. Being in class, like, hating the fact that we were in school, but, like, oh, at least we got, you know, Mortal Kombat to look forward to. And I looked it up while I was hanging out at Marlene's, which wasn't easy to find. You would think like you just type in,
Fatality.
you know, Mortal Kombat, Sega Genesis, or home console release date, and it just kept popping up like 93. And I'm like, I know it was 93. I want to know.
Like specifically what
I want to know exactly what fucking day, because I'm like, it was the 13th. I was like, I've got to do a freaking video. So, let me see something real quick here.